Okay, can I just ask you what is Bhagawa? Bhagawa. Anyone? It means the blessed one. So whenever you see a chant, you say Bhagawa To, you know what Bhagawa is, the blessed one. So this one basic, okay. Next, what is Sama Sambuddho? Sama Sambuddho. No stress. Yes, fully enlightened, awakened to the truth, and able to teach others. Different from the silent Buddha. Okay, so we already know 9 qualities of the Buddha. So today we're going to the Dhamma Vandana. All right, so you know everything you need to know about Dhamma. What exactly is the Dhamma? Okay, all right, are you all ready? So let's start. You all know what's Vandana already, right? It means homage to the Dhamma. And what's homage? Homage means you respect, you revere. Why are we paying homage to the Dharma, a non-sentient entity? We will come back to this at the end of the topic. MC? MC?
Sabgato Bhagavato Dhammo, well expounded is the Dharma by the Exalted One. Sandikito, Akaliko, visible here and now, timeless. Epipasico, Opanaiko, inviting investigation, leading on to Nibbana. Pachatam, Vaditabo, Venuhi, to be comprehended by the wise, each for himself.
So this is what we will chant when you go to anytime you pay homage, even if Vesak Day you go to the temples, they always start with the Homage Series. This is what we chant. How much of the chant do you really understand? Are the qualities something you can relate to, that you know how to apply to your life? Or they are just concepts that you find very lofty, very, very cheap? So to know what the Dharma Vandana stands for, we will first look at the following things. Okay. What does the word Dharma mean? So number 2, we will not only look at the explanation of each of the 6 qualities of this chant, but more importantly, we will also look at the practical applications. And when you say, I take refuge in the Dharma, remember, Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, what do you think it means? First, let's look at what exactly is the Dharma. So the Dharma is a doctrine of reality. The Dharma is often compared to a raft, the sole purpose of which is to bring us to the shore of Nibbana and out of the ocean of samsara. The Buddha's teachings are determined also according to the laws of nature, is it not? And formulated in a way that makes it possible for us to experience the truth firsthand. You need to have direct experience. We're referring the Dharma also to the Buddha's teachings. Now, this word Dharma also has other meanings. Now, it is used in the Abhidharma, and we all know from my talk on the Pali Canon that the Abhidharma was added to the Tipitaka about how many years after Buddha passed on? About 250 years after the Buddha's parinibbana, and was only added on to the Tipitaka at the Third Buddhist Council. Okay, so these are commentaries, not the Buddha's words. Here in Abhidharma, this is what is stated. MC?
The Dhammas fall into 2 broad classes. The unconditioned Dharma, which is solely Nibbana, and the conditioned Dhammas, which are the momentary mental and material phenomena that constitute the process of experience.
So mental and physical phenomena refers to everything that is subject to causes and conditions, which means us and everything around us. Okay. Now, Abhidharma is, okay, let's say, for example, water. In the sutta, we will refer to water as water. In the Abhidharma, they refer to water as H2O. So Abhidharma is a very scientific interpretation and breaking down of the Dharma. Okay? Now, so in the Abhidharma, is a very detailed analysis of the processes with emphasis on the mental processes like thoughts and emotions. You all don't need to learn the Abhidharma. I've gone for courses of Abhidharma. It's really not necessary at all. Okay, you may get very confused. Don't worry if you do not understand what's unconditioned and conditioned. I will explain this concept in more detail later on.
And how bhikkhus does a bhikkhu abide contemplating mind objects as mind objects? Katancha bhikkhave bhikkhu dhammesu dhammanapasi viharati.
So here, the word Dharma is used in the training on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And when we talk about mental objects, we talk about the 5 hindrances and the 7 factors of enlightenment. Now, what are the 5 hindrances? Do you all know? Because when you go to samadhi, you will not have the 5 hindrances. All right. As long as when you meditate, right, your mind is not totally quiet because you will have in existence the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are first sense desire, that wanting to do something else. You have the aversion, you have sloth and torpor, you have doubt, and you have restlessness. Okay, so this refers to the 5 hindrances. And what are the 7 factors of enlightenment? Very fast, sati, mindfulness, investigation of the law, energy, isriya, rapture, piti, pasadi, tranquility, samadhi, concentration, and upekkha, equanimity. Okay, not important to know, just in passing. Okay.
Yopiso.
No need, just read the English words for do.
Okay, thank you. Bhikkhus, even a wheel-turning monarch, a righteous king who rules by the Dharma, does not turn the wheel without a king above him.
So we can also find the sutta, the word Dharma Raja. So Dharma also means what? Justice or righteousness. So a good or righteous king is called a Dharma Raja. And who is the king of Dharma Raja? Haha, it is the Dharma, isn't it? The truth and the Buddha's teachings that shows him the truth. These are the various meanings of the word Dharma. But these 2 definitions, all right, are the ones most commonly used and which we are most familiar with. And as such, it's enough for us to know the Dharma as per this definition and will be the ones we are referring to unless otherwise stated. Okay.
Bhikkhus, whether Tathagatas arise or not, there persists that law, that stableness of the Dharma, that fixed cost of the Dharma. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent.
What we have to know is this: whether the Buddha arise or not, the Dharma exists for all eternity. Right? Beings will always be ignorant of the Dharma until a Samma Sambuddha realizes it and reveals it to the world. So we're all very lucky, we have good karma because the Dharma still exists. The Buddha's teaching is still here for us to learn. Okay, now we know what is the Dharma. Let's move on to the 6 qualities of the Dharma. First, okay, Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Swakato has been translated as well preached and perfectly expounded. So to be more specific, the teachings of the Buddha refer to the word of the Buddha, or what the Buddha said, which is Buddha Vajana. Logically speaking, right, to preserve Buddhism is to preserve the word of the Buddha. Now, not long before the Buddha Parinibbana, the Buddha himself said that not any one monk was to be appointed his successor after his passing.
Ananda, the doctrine and discipline I have set forth and laid down for you, all shall be your teacher after I am gone.
Instead, the doctrine and discipline, which is the Dharma and Vinaya, would take his place. So they represent these two branches of the Tipitaka. All right, as I said, the Abhidharma was added later on. Since then, for more than 2,500 years, as you can all remember from my talk on the Pali Canon, great efforts have been made by the Sangha to uphold and preserve the teachings. Now, the next question is why? Why are we preserving the teachings? What is Nibbana to us? Have you ever wondered about the purpose of life? What do you aim to do in life? And why? All the actions we have taken in the past, we are taking now, or plan to take in the future, what is the one thing they have in common? Well, we can come up with several reasons, but ultimately, we will see only one goal, right? One objective, right? Is that, I want to be happy. So happiness can take various forms, it's not. Fame and fortune, romantic love, sex, the thrill of adventure, the pleasant buzz, from being in love, or from alcohol, high from drugs, etc. So happiness, if you do not know the Dharma, it means feeling good, both physically and mentally. Okay, but we all know, right, that love is just a feeling. Okay, and the feeling changes and it doesn't last. No doubt that we have all achieved many things that gives us happiness. So the next question is, why haven't we stopped looking? Why aren't we contented with what we have? Because we're never contented because the feel-good state does not last. When was the last time someone or something made you extremely happy? Can you remember whether the happiness lasted? Even when you recollect the incident, you will feel some happiness, but does that happiness stay?
There are two great disappointments in life, not getting what you want and getting it.
Precisely because happiness is impermanent, getting something we want can still lead to disappointment. But that doesn't stop us from constantly searching and clinging on to what we have, always in the hope that the happiness will last. Why do we do that? Because we don't know any better way to be happy. But is there a better way?
It is wisdom that leads to letting go of a lesser happiness in pursuit of a happiness which is greater.
Yes, there is happiness that does not require any conditions. It's not dependent on external circumstances, which means that something doesn't have to always exist or happen first before this happiness can arise. So as you progress spiritually, you will realize that you're more calm, more contented, your mind is quieter, and you have that right? So this is on the way to the final happiness, and that's Nibbana, which can be attained through the realization of the truth. And what are the truths?
First noble truth of suffering. Second noble truth of the cause of suffering. Third noble truth, noble truth of the cessation of suffering, and the fourth noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering.
Okay, if you have not done so already, can you all please memorize these four, okay? Because the training to realize the truth is in here. So the truths, when taken as a whole, is a practical problem-solving approach to end suffering. And suffering, all right, first, we know suffering, and this suffering should be comprehended, is cause abandoned and the cessation realized, right? And the path to its cessation developed. So we're all very familiar with this path, which is the Noble Eightfold Path. Again, if you have not done so, please memorize this. And here, the eight path factor grouped into threefold divisions of first, morality, isn't it? Which is succinctly explained by Pra Ajahn Tun Atulo as
Virtue means the normalcy of a mind that's free of faults, the mind that has armored itself against doing evil of any kind.
so we're talking a mind which is able to exercise restraint. So if you don't practice morality, you can't even exercise basic restraint. Can't even keep to the 5 precepts. It's very hard for you to sit down and go into samadhi, right? Because the mind is more restless. So this means that this mind here, next we talk about concentration. I need to say a bit more. Now, the training of morality gives us more control, right, over our greed, our aversion, and our delusion, which means that the mind is less agitated, a mind that's more contented, more joyful. All right, that's why it will help in the meditation practice, which in turn calms down the mind even more, giving the mind a lot of clarity and a lot of strength. And the next step you need to do is concentration, which is this.
Concentration is the result that comes from maintaining that virtue, that is, a mind with solidity, with stillness as the strength, sending it on to the next step.
That is why the Buddha gave us the 5 precepts to uphold as the minimum standard for morality. So the training in morality gives us more control over our greed, aversion, and delusion. Okay? Then what do you have? Next is wisdom. Okay?
Discernment. What knows is a mind empty, light and at ease, seeing things clearly, all the way through for what they really are.
So the word Buddho is the knower, right? You all know this now, Buddho. Therefore, wisdom is the mind that knows. So the Noble Eightfold Path is a progressive learning and experiential exercise that leads from the purity of the conduct, which is morality, to concentration of the mind, and from there to wisdom, to see the true nature of things, and ultimately attain total release from suffering and rebirth. Okay, it is a DIY package. All right, that comes with threefold strategies. Here, all of us have finished Right Speech, right? Under the Right Speech series, we have covered right action. The next time I see you, I hope to cover right livelihood. We slowly take one path per time, okay, until we finish all 8 paths. Now, the 3 strategies is what? Pariyati means theoretical understanding of the Dharma, obtained through reading, studying, and learning, and attending talks such as these. Then we need to move on to Patipati, the practice itself. And then Pativeda, which means realization, which is direct, first-hand knowledge of the Dharma. So the survival of Buddhism means that the Buddha's teachings are not just effectively passed down orally or in writing, but more importantly, put into practice.
Any teaching or doctrine on truth that is only intended as an intellectual exercise of logic or reason and contains no corresponding elements for practical application in everyday life is not Buddhism, especially the original and genuine teachings given by the Buddha himself, which are referred to as Buddha Dharma.
Okay. So once the Buddha Dharma is no longer put into practice, Buddhism cannot be said to exist anymore. Okay, so we understand this. So now, if you all have Instagram, you can follow this Instagram page called the Buddha Dharma Foundation. All right, there's no hyphen in between. Buddha Dharma Foundation. They have a lot of quotes from Ajahn Chah, quoting true Dharma. Okay, right now we go on to the next quality is Sandhi Diko. It means what? Here and now, which means the Dharma is immediately apparent. In the Sandhi-Dika Sutta, Moliyasiwaka, the wanderer, went to the Blessed One and asked him this.
Bhante, it is said, the directly visible Dharma, In what way, Bhante, is the Dharma directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise?
Then Buddha replied,
Well then, Sivika, I will question you in turn about this. Answer as you see fit. What do you think, Sivika? When there is greed within you, do you know there is greed within me? And when there is no greed within you, do you know there is no greed within me? Yes, Bhante.
because a person can discern, right, whether there's a presence or absence of greed within. The Dharma is, in a way, visible here and now. So the phrases were repeated for hatred and delusion. See, if you don't know the Dharma, you are not mindful of your mind, you have not meditated. So when you see like char kway teow unhealthy, you just eat straight away because you like it. You don't stop and be mindful of the fact that there's greed. You don't need to eat that because it gives you no nutrition, but you're just greedy. So when you are more mindful of your mind, you can see the greed within you. Isn't it? Just like you see angry, you don't feel they're justified to be angry or you will rationalize why there should be anger. You can see anger. You know you're angry, and that's not right. So greed, hatred, and delusion are known as Pali is what? You all know the greed for Pali is doba. Hatred means aversion, or many kinds dosa, and delusion is moha. I've shown these slides before in all my talks. So if you can, please memorize the three roots of evil: greed, hatred, and delusion. Lobha, dosa, moha. These are the three unwholesome roots. We all have this in us. All right. And it's just to what extent and level. Until the time when these three roots are totally eliminated, then you have eradicated all your suffering. And all these three roots will give rise to a whole lot of mental states, examples of which are shown here. It governs all unskillful thoughts, speech, and action. They are latent in our minds. This means that even though they do not surface in the presence of suitable cause or condition, they are present in us as long as we are not enlightened. So greed and hatred is totally eliminated at the third stage of enlightenment. All right, Anagami. Only in an Arahant is delusion, moha, totally eradicated. So the Buddha Dasa describes these three tendencies as pulling in. Yes, pulling in, it's pushing away. First you, all right, pushing away and running in circles. That's the moha. So how do we put the quality of Sandhi Diko into practice? Visible here and now. Okay, let me just summarize again. Lobha or greed is the mental state that wanders out in search of an object that produces pleasant feelings. Dosa or aversion is the mental state that arises when the search becomes thwarted or there is resistance to unpleasant feelings. And not understanding the true nature of these mental states is delusion, right? Or moha. Okay, that is a summary. Now, Let's put this into practice. For example, craving for food. We will take note of both our physical and mental reactions. So when we see, smell, or think of something we want to eat very badly, a few things will happen. The heart rate increases. There is tightness of the body, and you start salivating. And the stomach may even rumble in anticipation of the food. Now, physical reactions are easier to discern than mental ones and are telltale signs that there is craving. For example, practicing, yeah, you can see this, right? The mind becomes heavier and feeling of unease and discomfort. Now, if you're not mindful, you will not realize that your mental energy is actually heavier already. Okay. And when you crave for something, what is it? It's a thirst, right? A thirst. It's not a pleasant feeling. So then later on, you observe how the greed fades away. Because when you see greed as greed, you're not feeding the greed by thoughts. You recognize the mental state for what it is, then that greed fades away. And when greed is no longer present, how does the body feel? How does the mind feel? So presence and absence of greed is Dharma, isn't it? The true nature of mind and body that is visible here and now and immediately apparent. Then we look at hatred or dosa that arises because of unmet needs. So in many ways, if you're caught up in it, it can be easier to see than greed, isn't it? Same thing, all right? Right. So a lot of people, when they're angry, they don't even know they're angry. All right. They didn't know that the mind and body is actually suffering. And we all know that anger is punishing oneself for the mistakes of others. So when the body is very angry, what they do is they keep thinking and feeding the anger by having their own Korean drama in the mind. But if you're angry and start to say, hey, this is anger, and look at anger, anger fades. So what about delusion? Any mental state that is not greed or not aversion, like confusion, doubt, and laziness, come under delusion. Restlessness and distraction is also moha, delusion, because that delusion comes from the sense of ego, isn't it? Ego underlies the greed and the hatred and is present in every mental state. All right? The mental states all have subtle differences in flavor, but they have the same characteristics, is it not? The stronger the mental state, the heavier and more uncomfortable the sensation. Also, the more sensitive you are to your mind, the more keenly you can discern these unwholesome states. Now, at the start of training, when you cannot feel your mind, just pay attention to the strong emotions. For example, your intense dislike, the strong craving for something like food, deep sadness, and then you see for yourself, anger is like this. Greed is like this, right? Sadness is like this. And when the sensations fade, the mind feels like this. The body feels like this. So it's not personal. Okay. Mind is the forerunner of all states. Mind is their chief. Mind made are they. If with a pure thought, one should either speak or act, because of that, happiness follows, as one's shadow never departing. So, a wholesome mind, on the other hand, a mind of goodwill, gratitude, or contentment, is experienced as lightness of being. It's a very nice feeling, a quieter mind. And if you are sensitive to your mind, you can actually feel bliss, which can increase your mental joy. Now, this joy, this lightness of mind, is a prerequisite to see the Dharma. It's a prerequisite for you to see mind body, to go to samadhi. That is why morality is part of the Noble Eightfold Path to form the foundation for our mental cultivation. Okay? So we now understand what Sandhi Diko, visible here and now, right? So next we will move on to Akaliko. What's akaliko? It means timeless. Now, the Dharma is not bound by time, whether it's the truth, because it's the truth, all right? Because truth can never get old, right? So the Dharma is a timeless truth of the way things are, which means that whether it is in the past, present, or future, everything exists according to the law of Dharma, the law of nature, which is firstly, now I'm going to explain the law of cause and effect.
When this exists, that comes to be with the arising of this, that arises. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases.
So what the Buddha is saying here is showing you dependent origination. Let me illustrate this. Now, if B is dependent on A, then if A exists, B exists. So if A comes into being, B will also arise. If A does not exist, B does not exist. So if A ceases, B also ceases. So A is the cause and B is the effect. But for cause to give effect, the conditions must be right. Now, I know some of you probably attended the course on dependent origination, so just bear with this. This is what you call basic understanding, okay? So when we talk about conditions must be right, what are the conditions? To have a tree, you need a seed. The seed is the cause, the tree is the effect. But for the seed to grow into the tree, you need air, water, sunlight, and nutrients. And these represent the conditions. All right, another example. A functioning eye faculty gives us the ability to see, right? So our eye is the cause and the sight is the effect. Okay. So to be able to see at night, what do you need? You need light. The light is the condition. So a condition is therefore something that must exist or happen first before something else can happen. So a conditioned phenomenon, you'll hear this a lot, you read in the suttas, a conditioned phenomenon is therefore a state or process or experience that is subject to the law of cause and effect and is dependent on conditions. Okay, I repeat, a conditioned phenomenon is therefore a state or process or experience that is subject to the law of cause and effect and is dependent on conditions. This also applies to karma, right? Nothing happens because we want it to. It happens by way of cause and effect. So all conditioned physical and mental phenomena, which come into being because the conditions are right, and then cease because the conditions no longer support them, are therefore all subject to change. This means that all conditioned things cannot be permanent, cannot be eternal, and cannot exist independently. Now you all understand. Okay? So as long as you're in samsara, we are in conditioned phenomena. Okay?
Because whether Tathagatas arise or not, there persists that law, that stableness of the Dharma, that fixed cause of the Dharma. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent.
So impermanence is also the law of nature, the truth of the way things are. Anicca, right?
All compounded things are impermanent. Strive on with heedfulness.
Okay? If you know this truth, you don't hold on to things so tight. You don't live life so personally. Change is part of life. Right? And you can see here this quote. This is the last phrase that was uttered by the Buddha before he entered Parinibbana. Now, throughout his 45 years of teaching, the Buddha often employed this very important concept of impermanence to demonstrate non-self. All right, like the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, which was first delivered to the first 5 disciples shortly after he attained Nibbana. Right? Okay, remember the slide, in the beginning, the meditation slide, the 5 disciples, and that represents the first discourse when Buddha gave the discourse on the Anatta Lakkhanas, okay, the aggregates.
What do you think, bhikkhus, is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself?
Because you can't have control. You don't have full control. Even this body, we have no full control. All right. So if you hold on to this body too tight, all right, too personally, you're not going to be happy aging. You're going to get so bothered when you have wrinkles. And then when your body is going to deteriorating daily, and if you cannot accept that aging, all right, the deterioration body is part of life, then you suffer, isn't it? So the Buddha employs the concept of impermanence, anicca, to demonstrate suffering or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. These 3 basic features can be found in all conditioned existence within space and within time, past, present, and future. This is the timeless truth of the way things are. All right? To see things as they really mean to see them consistently in the light of these 3 universal characteristics. To see this is also to see the law of cause and effect. And this is what Vipassana meditation is for. Okay, please, brothers and sisters, remember things. Things do not happen in life simply because we pray for it to happen, or we want it, or we desire it. We build the causes and conditions for things to happen. That is karma, is it not? Okay, this is end of part 1.